So, ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Bullis Gotti. This video right here, we discussing Jamaica politics and everything that went on in Jamaica in the 60s, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The whole Edward Seaga, Michael Manley. Let's break it down like this. I got a couple footage so you can see Bob Marley talking, Michael Manley, Edward Seaga, and many others. I hope y'all like this footage that I'm about to show you. We talking about Jamaica politics and the whole posses.
Even down in Jamaica, I'm skipping, they tried in 1976 to organize a military coup to overthrow Michael Manley. In 1976, they supported attempts to assassinate Michael Manley on 3 different occasions. The little man who led Jamaica, who spoke at Savior's Day, was such a threat to our government that they attempted 3 times to assassinate the man in 1976. So later, they found a way to get rid of him through riots in the street over food when they cut off assistance to Jamaica. This is America.
Them fire until it was tired of fire, and then chew is not really a lawful gun battle. Man start to run and it ease up, you know.
Where were you hit?
Eh?
Where were you hit?
Me? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Went right through? Or just skinned
No,
it?
them said lodge inside there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You never saw the gunman?
Well, at that time, no.
But you know who did it?
You ever know them?
Were they caught?
No, but I don't call the police. It's just, you know, one thing.
You have a record company now.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, you know, a long time we always have a record company. What we have now is a recording studio. When we go into the studio to work, it was a lot of hassle. I mean, we're Rasta, you know. Some people don't want a Rasta in them studio. You know, if you stop all of this, you have to make one because, you know what I mean, a man might say, no, you say, Haile Selassie are God. Well, you know what I mean, go and build your own studio. You know what I mean? So, all right, Haile Selassie is God, I'm going to build a studio, you know. So, you know what I mean, I just let go. Them things come through sabotage and through pressure. If everything was nice, maybe we wouldn't have to build a studio. But, you know, it's just a tricky place. It's not everyone really have that humanitarian feeling. Some people just deal with, them don't even know what I'm dealing with.
What's ahead for Bob Marley, do you know? Do you have an agenda or a master plan?
Well, I feel ahead for I and I is the unity of Africa. And then when the unity of Africa comes, then people will really understand, say, you know, there was something in this thing. There is something in it.
Do you think of yourself more as an African than a Jamaican?
Yeah, because one of the main things is that we're Rasta. From you accept Rasta, you become an Ethiopian, which is Africa. Next thing again, the history of Jamaica shows that the Arawak Indian was living there, and it belonged to the Arawak Indian. Now, our history shows that through slave business, black people come out of the Western thing, you know? So we still figure, say, Africa is a root, you know, and this is where we must return to.
What do you see as most of Africa's problems as far as uniting? I mean,
I see Africa's problem is that outside people keep on fatiguing the people, you know, and make them can't really get them things together, you know. If it's not this superpower, it's that superpower. But Africa is only a place which part of music exploit, you know. Nobody not really. Africa's so rich that it become a man who's going to Africa, steal out what he wants to steal and carry back in a film country. And Africa stay there like, you know. But Africa ready.
Garvey used to say Africa for the Africans. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, Africa for Africans, a woman abroad, you know. True.
Will your home base though always be Jamaica, or someday would you like to live in Africa?
No, someday be in Africa.
Yeah.
Maybe we up in Jerusalem. You know what I mean? Let them Bible land.
And what do you think lies ahead for Jamaica?
I think what lies ahead for Jamaica is that Jamaica is a beautiful island. The best thing Jamaica could have been is just like how Jamaica, like how England owned Jamaica. Jamaica must make some part of Africa own Jamaica. You know what I mean? And it work more nicer. I mean, you know. But if it's going to be a thing which probably we always going to have a war. Because the only solution is either them get themselves with Nigeria or with someone, you know what I mean? But make Jamaica become some African, something to do with Africa, that Africa owns Jamaica, you know? But because the people and them whole heap ideology and philosophy where they want to come with, you know, some people want to be Marxist, some want to be this, some want to be that. And nobody don't, and plenty of people don't want to be with them is. And where them is African. And Africa have its own culture, its own people. And you know, all it needs is people who keep it down for either die out of the earth or something.
What is your feeling about the condition of black people here in the United States?
I feel like black people should develop themselves, you know, not necessarily then this developing of yourself having a prejudice thing to it. It's just that we are people with our own history and culture. We can educate ourselves. I mean, we are the first creators. So we have to really, everything when you see on this earth here, the black man make it. And I'm saying that the white man don't make some, but all wisdom comes from the black man.
You know, a lot of young viewers look up to you and are going to want to hang on every word and every syllable. Do you have a message for young people?
Well, you know, the whole thing again is to really check out the truth of Rasta and don't make like follyism. Don't make it check it out. And don't get too busy that you can't check out the truth. Because the truth is there. And Africa awaits its creators. And we know that the people in the West, headwise, it's them ready, you know. It's them have to learn, come learn. What them learning in the West, them have to carry it home to them people. Make it be a benefit to the people. Because, I mean, how long must the black people suffer? And these are people, you know. And then we have our own culture. We have everything. We don't short of anything. We have everything. Plus we have a land that no one is living there. And we must go home to it. And when you go home, you can build all of these big buildings if you want. I mean, if you miss a city, build a city. You know what I mean? If you want a car, you can get a car. I mean, I don't see the big thing. One time America was, you know what I mean, maybe used to have lots of all where I call it, all sort of thing I walk through. Africa is a peaceful place. Then we want to fool black people, but it's a jungle and blah, blah, boom, boom.
Where have you been in Africa besides Ethiopia?
Zimbabwe.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Gabon.
How did Zimbabwe strike you?
Well, you know, Zimbabwe nice, man. Zimbabwe really nice. I mean, you know, it's like a paradise in a place. You know, when you go in and see it. Beautiful.
How did the people react to you?
People's great. Yeah. People good. You know, them places when you go and you see how the people and how the land set up, you see people living. You see a man having mouse on a nice piece of, and then the whole thing about it, the climate, you can go out all the while. You know what I mean? The climate nice outside.
Yeah.
If you want to look on a few lions and things, you can walk and go. And if you want to see some things that man never make, but it look like somebody make it, that's all Zimbabwe too. Because I go in a place and I see some stone farm, where I know it's not the man make it, but the weight farm, you know, is higher than something.
It's really been a pleasant and informative experience talking to you, Brother Marley.
Nice.
I thank you for your time.
I
Wish you well.
that's that.
Even down in Jamaica, I'm skipping, they tried in 1976 to organize a military coup to overthrow Michael Manley. In 1976, they supported attempts to assassinate Michael Manley on 3 different occasions. The little man who led Jamaica, who spoke at Savior's Day, was such a threat to our government that they attempted 3 times to assassinate the man in 1976. So later, they found a way to get rid of him through riots in the street over food when they cut off assistance to Jamaica. This is America.
I agree with you, but you certainly make your case for the legitimacy of what you're doing very well.
Let's take a look at some of the things which Lewis Wolf had to say, and we'll let you comment ever so often on this, okay?
What, in the years that you've been publishing it, do you think are some of your most significant revelations? Are there some stories that even shocked you?
Well, I think one of the big stories that we were able to document in some detail was the whole scope of CIA activities similar to what the CIA did in Chile, and which was documented by the Senate Select Committee, was the whole covert action program in Jamaica in between 1976 and 1980. And we did a great deal of research into that, and we discovered in many ways a very similar program, almost a classic model that was followed along the lines of what they did in Chile. Including 3 major categories: military, paramilitary activity, the use of propaganda in the media, and the third one, which was economic warfare, using the multilateral organizations, the International Monetary Fund and others, to withhold loans which had been promised to the Jamaican government. This is one example.
What are a couple more of the details of that? You mentioned those first 2 examples of actual paramilitary activity the CIA was involved in Jamaica.
There was a fire, for example, that took place in Jamaica of an old people's home. I think 150 old and infirmed women, many of them blind, were living in this home. And as it turned out, the place burned down in the space of about 8 minutes, 7 or 8 minutes. It was discovered that the phone wires had been cut, and that the exits had all been blocked. Even those who could see their way out could not get out. That the means by which the fire was set was the use of a petroleum jelly, which was unavailable in Jamaica. This was one indication, among others, that there was outside help. Why would the CIA, you might ask, why would the CIA want to murder 150 old women? It was because it was an effort, part of a very large-scale effort to discredit the government in Jamaica, which was at the time headed by Michael Manley, the Prime Minister. There were images produced of Michael Manley in the media, in the Daily Gleaner, which was the newspaper which the United States, through the CIA, helped to support. And there is a good deal of evidence of that. There were images of Michael Manley showing a death mask. I mean, it was his face which had been somehow made to look like a death mask, although it was pretending to be a photograph of him. And there were many ways to try and discredit him. This is very, very similar, in fact, to what the CIA did to try and discredit Salvador Allende in Chile. If you remember, Richard Nixon instructed the CIA in a meeting which was in 1970 in the White House, and there was a document in the Senate report which is reprinted, and he said, "Make the economy scream." Those were his words. And that's, of course, what the CIA proceeded to do in Chile, and that's what they also did in Jamaica.
They also furnished a lot of munitions and assistance to the terrorist squads that were going around killing people in the cities and also in the countryside in Jamaica as well.
That's correct.
Well, John, you had a trip down to Jamaica, and you saw a lot of these things about Jamaica with your own eyes, right?
Yes, indeed. I a very moving, a very interesting trip to me to see a target country at a time in the height of a CIA operation when I was completely outside. So there's no way that I could see the problem that journalists have always had when the U.S. government was targeting on a country in a situation, trying to destabilize it, overthrow or manipulate the elections or whatever, of trying to figure out what's going on when you don't have access to all of the flow of cables and the discussions in National Security Council meetings and whatnot for the planning. I observed that from published information, the CIA station there was quite large for that size of a country. It was huge, in fact. It was bigger than any station I knew of in Africa, although Jamaica was a fairly small island with 2 million people. That's typical of when the CIA has got a big operation going in a place. They beef up the station and beef up the offices back stateside. The tone and flow of articles in the Gleaner was, of course, as Lou says, definitely a chapter out of Chile or a chapter out of the Angolan operation. Every indication of a massive CIA operation going to destabilize the government, to make the economy scream, and in that case, I would say that probably someone got promoted for that one, probably several people.
Because Manley was run out of office.
Because it worked.
By a legitimate election.
Without a scandal, without an assassination, without the things that have caused the CIA so much grief, Manley, a champion of social democracy, of giving the people a piece of the pie, was thrown out of office, and an arch-capitalist was put in office. And again, there was minimal adverse publicity. Lew Wolf and the others were studying the situation and did publish about what was going on, but it was not published in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and the big television networks didn't do studies on it, primarily because even if the journalists of the big organs knew what was happening and might have wanted to, they really just, because of the secrecy, couldn't get the truth about what the United States was doing. One interesting thing was that the effectiveness of the liars in our government, the duplicity. When we formed the CIA, we committed our leaders to having two policies, as Lou says, the rhetoric, the public statements, and the truth about what United States policy is. So an interesting measure of presidents is how effectively they lie. Interesting discussions that occur inside the CIA is about lying. Would you lie? You're the DDO and you're going to testify to the Senate, and it's serious discussions. Are you going to lie? Because if you do, it's perjury, and there's a chance you could go to jail, and yet, the organization expects you to lie. President Carter was one of the most effective liars I have ever watched on television and through the media. As a poker player, man, I would never go up against that man. He could look at that camera and say things that obviously he knew were completely and totally false. And I would study his expression, and I could detect nothing except occasionally a little wisp of a smile that wasn't consistent with what he was saying, like he thought it was funny. But one of his more classic
tick, actually.
Yeah, well, the smile that I was referring to wasn't that. It was just a kind of like he was repressing a grin, like he thought it was funny. How he rationalized these things, I don't know. But one of his most conspicuous lies was when he sat down with Manley just a few weeks before the elections in Washington and told him face to face that the CIA, don't have the CIA doing anything to destabilize you or your government. We have no such program going, when obviously he did. And he pulled it off to the point where even Manley was troubled. Very effective liar.
The fact that Jamaica supplies the United States with the majority of its mineral source of aluminum, bauxite. Michael Manley is Prime Minister, elected in 1972 and re-elected this year by an overwhelming majority. This charismatic statesman has become a world figure, Among third world nations, he is highly respected, principally because of the system of government that he has prescribed for Jamaica, called democratic socialism, as well as for his positions on third world issues. For example, he was a keynote speaker at this year's United Nations conference in Maputo, Mozambique, a conference focused on the Southern African crisis. On October 28th, while he was in New York, Mr. Manley agreed to an exclusive interview with Like It Is. We began with the subject of Jamaica's new form of government, democratic socialism, a concept and practice that has caused great controversy and some dissension.
When we came to power, I felt I've always belonged to that camp of people that believes that a society succeeds best where it most clearly articulates purposes. And that this is really the key to the political significance of philosophies of this kind. And that we really hadn't looked for a long time at socialism, which, you know, is a wide concept, as indeed is capitalism, yes. A wide concept. Yes. And so we felt that the time had come to take this all out, look at it again, get the party cadres, all the groups and sections of the party to think about it, debate it, look at what had happened to the world since 1940, look at what had happened to the world since 1945. And so we went through a tremendous exercise that went on for months all over Jamaica. And eventually drafts were prepared of ways of expounding our contemporary interpretation. We looked at, studied, debated, and eventually a document known as Democratic Socialism, the Jamaica Model, evolved by intensive internal democratic debate. And that really is the philosophy to which you refer. And as I said, those are the forces that led to it, partly because it has always been so, and partly because we felt it was necessary.
There were certain social pressures at that time.
At all times. There are tremendous social pressures in Jamaica. Jamaica, like almost all countries that had a long colonial experience, is a product of that experience and reflected at the time of independence sharp class divisions, a very small and highly privileged elite, the elite who were really the beneficiaries of colonialism and of the imperialist process of economic exploitation, tremendous poverty, dangerous gaps between the haves and the have-nots. All of those are colonial legacies, and all of those are charged with social tension, the inevitability of social tension. And a lot of what we have tried to do as a government is really addressing those problems by government action, but attempting not to address them in a piecemeal, haphazard way, but address them in a systematic way, in an organized way, and in a way that is pointed by having a philosophy.
Now, you are a seasoned man of the world, and surely it must have occurred to you when you formulated this philosophy of government that it may have frightened people to hear this term socialism, whatever its appendage. Had you figured to allow for the reaction that might have come out of saying socialism, that many people might have jumped back and said, communism? Had you anticipated that?
Yes, we knew that there were risks that would attach to this. You know, anything that you do in life has risks. And the thing about life is whether the risks are worth your objectives. And the real truth, you know, is that I'm always a little amused by the suggestion that the thing, for instance, that really frightened people was socialism. That's not what frightened people. What frightened people in Jamaica was that there was a group who had had a great life for a long time. They'd been very privileged. And they had found ways for years never to pay their taxes, to make no contribution to the development of a just society. And before we declared the democratic socialism, we had begun to address the problem of privilege, the gap between the rich and the poor. We had started to introduce wealth taxes to get at people who had very skillfully avoided income taxes for many years. and we had begun land reform, redistribution of land, and there were all the objective signs of the first attempt to build an egalitarian society, which begins with the dismantling of the citadels of privilege. And for instance, the migration from Jamaica predated the declaration of democratic socialism. But naturally, once democratic socialism was declared, it provided a convenient label which people could attach to fears that they had for other reasons.
Was it as heavy as afterward?
No, but I don't think democratic socialism is really what precipitated any acceleration of migration. What did cause a very regrettable, we've never wanted people to migrate, we've always asked people to stay, but we've said very firmly we're not going to compromise the policies because Jamaica has to be changed. You don't change anything without a certain amount of difficulty and a certain amount of upset. This is inevitable. And what really would have caused, say, accelerations in migration is when there were accelerations in the measures, the objective measures that were necessary to bring about change. When land reform became more vigorous and more dynamic, people got more upset, certain kinds of landowners got more upset, and so on and so forth. Though, in fact, a lot of it's very interesting, you know, because a lot of it was an interpretation of objective events. If you really look at the things that we have done, they have not been draconian. The society is still completely free. The press is free, the elections are free, the democracy is free, the rule of law is entrenched, you know, all of those institutions are firmly in place. And as I said, the actual things that have been done have not been that harsh. But I think that what really happened in Jamaica was a combination of two things. One, the inevitable, insecure reaction to change. And this you just have to accept. But it also was taking place in a context of the most wrenching economic circumstances that you can imagine. You cannot understand that problem in Jamaica outside of the context of what world inflation did us and what the world recession did us, where we were caught in what begun with wheat prices that multiplied by 5 in a society that's very dependent on grains for its basic diet. And wheat, corn, soybeans didn't go up 50%, 400%, 500%. We were just overwhelmed with inflation in an economy very dependent on trade. Then came the oil prices in a country that depends to the tune of 97% on oil for its energy. And suddenly the oil bill multiplied by 4 knocked the whole balance of payments sideways. Many manufacturers who had begun launched firms in recent years, did not have a very strong economic base as yet, suddenly found themselves in a situation where all their suppliers of raw materials were threatening to cancel raw material supplies if they were not allowed to break the supply contracts and double or treble the price. So that a tremendous economic insecurity resulted from all of this. So that here we were embarked on what we conceived as the necessity for serious change, when the process of change, already an upsetting phenomenon by itself, was set in the context of this tremendous world economic convulsion. Now that's an awful lot of stuff to handle at one time, and a lot of people got frightened.
What about the question of race in Jamaica? Now, there is a national slogan, out of many, one. Or out of one, many.
Out of many, one.
Out of many, one.
Yes.
Sorry. Now, was racism a problem in Jamaica, or was it just along the lines that you've described, a social problem, an economic problem?
Well, let's put it this way. At root, it is an economic problem. At root, it is a class problem that has flowed from a certain type of economic history based in slavery, colonialism, and a kind of capitalist system in a colonial environment. And inevitably, as is true of all post-slave societies, there has been the correlation between economic status and therefore class status and skin color. In the classic pattern of, you know, the black masses who were the slaves and then became farmers and workers. The brown middle classes who were
Hi, welcome to West 57th. I'm John Ferrugia. In the past few months, we've been hearing and seeing more about illegal drug trafficking than ever before. Despite the Reagan administration's war on drugs, it seems as though every week there's a new country, indeed a new U.S. ally, reportedly involved in shipping cocaine here. But what we rarely see is the connection between governments and their political motives in dealing with the drug problem. Tonight, we get an unusual glimpse into why the war on drugs is failing. Jamaica is one of this country's closest friends and favored trading partners. We give Jamaica more U.S. aid than any other Caribbean country. We also export a voracious appetite for drugs. So, Jamaican organized crime is flooding this country with tons of cocaine and marijuana. And along with the drugs, Jamaican gangs, or posses as they're called, have imported a brand of cruelty that's second to none.
Scott! Move! Hey, Scott, move! No window in. Good man, Scott! Hey, Scott! Stand around! Go, move, move, move! I got it.
This is the Jamaican connection most local police know. In Boston, in Miami, in Washington, D.C., Jamaican gangs are known to be responsible for at least 800 murders around the country. The horror is overwhelming. In January, 5 people were shot execution style, one after another in suburban Washington. A 6th survived.
Police officer, search warrant! Police officer, search warrant!
Even in Kansas City, the bloody war is being fought in the neighborhoods. The newest enemy is the Jamaican crack dealer. He seems to be everywhere, operating 24 hours a day with vicious efficiency.
What is your name?
It all started with violence, with homicide. We had picked up intelligence information early in 1985 that we had a group of Jamaican nationals in Kansas City pushing a new substance to us, being crack, cocaine.
Dave Barton is the commander of a combined federal and local task force formed specifically to fight Jamaican posses. What kind of money are you talking about? What kind of cash flow?
We figure a conservative estimation, one that doesn't seem so outrageous, would be anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000 a day.
In cash?
In cash, in the metropolitan area.
So you're talking about several $1 million a week?
That's right.
Is it staying in Kansas City?
No, it's not.
Where's it going?
Miami, New York, Jamaica.
This is the Jamaica the tourists never see. And here in the war on drugs lies the Jamaican connection with Kansas City, a connection few understand. Waterhouse, the neighborhood in Kingston from which the Kansas City posse takes its name and its members. The gang has shared political control of this area for years. Almost half the young men who grow up here will never have a steady job. The only career choice for many of them is membership in the gang.
We here in Waterhouse are afraid. We're the ones where the gunmen are running wild.
Father Richard Albert has been a priest in Waterhouse for 5 years. His church lies near the border of 2 rival gang territories. They've turned his parish into a battleground.
We have raids come back and forth. Saturday night I put my head on my pillow at 10 at 10 and I heard heavy gunfire. Heavy gunfire. This morning I got up to take the young kids off for a swim and there was pistol fire out on the street.
Some of the guns in the neighborhoods like Waterhouse come from the posses in the United States. Here's how it works. The posses use their profits from the sale of drugs to purchase high-powered weapons, like these taken in raids in Kansas City. They then smuggle the guns to Jamaica, where they are used to control the neighborhoods through violence, intimidation, and murder.
The gun is seen as a weapon, as part of the baggage that goes into a political campaign. We're going to wreck everything unless we stop that.
Ronald Thwaites is a prominent Kingston attorney and political commentator. He hosts Jamaica's most popular daily radio talk show, called Public Eye.
There must be this relationship between the so-called posses abroad and the local communities and the political aspirations within those communities. There isn't any other way for the guns to come in. Look, the guys who are being arrested, who are being shot down by the police, who are walking on the street corner with guns, they have no source of foreign exchange. They have no basis, no earnings on which to pay out hundreds, indeed thousands of Jamaican dollars to get a gun. Somebody is giving them that. Somebody is giving them that for a purpose, for a cause.
The ultimate cause in Jamaica is political power. For 40 years, Jamaican elections have been bitter and violent. The last time the two main parties met to elect a prime minister was 8 years ago, when armed gangs aligned themselves with both parties, helping them consolidate their control of neighborhoods. Those are the same gangs who are now showing up in American cities dealing drugs. Because of their brutality in 1980, Kingston was called the Beirut of the Caribbean. Two men have held political power here for nearly 2 decades. Socialist Michael Manley of the People's National Party was defeated in the 1980 election by Edward Seaga, who is the current prime minister and favorite of the Reagan administration. Seaga was the first head of state to be received by President Reagan after his election. He's an astute politician who says the violence of 1980 will not be repeated. But in the neighborhoods, you hear a different story. They are still sharply divided into highly charged political territories enforced by posses loyal to the parties. And no wonder. For the people of these ghettos, there is more at stake than just who will be the next prime minister.
What does it mean if you come out on the wrong end of the election, if your party loses? What's that mean to people here?
What it means basically often is victimization. The area is victimized. They need lights, they don't get no lights. The road has to be done, they don't get no road.
Strictly patronage.
Patronage, I use a stronger term, victimizing. They almost in a sense punish them for being laborite or being socialist.
This year, there will be a rematch between Edward Seaga and Michael Manley. Jamaican police admit that more guns have flooded the island now than in 1980 when these pictures were taken. Guns that many Jamaicans are afraid will be used to intimidate voters. U.S. attorneys and investigators and indeed captured posse members say that the guns are just one product of the millions of dollars in American drug sales that they believe will play a major role in the upcoming Jamaican campaign.
The money that is coming into Jamaica is coming in from outside Jamaica. It's being sold in the United States, and there is money coming into Jamaica.
Sir.
Not true.
Not true.
The posses in the United States have no influence.
You are confusing different things. The main drug dealers and drug barons are not posse people. They are people who would pass for businessmen. The profits that are made never come back to Jamaica. It's all in your country, not in mine. Now, posses have nothing to do with that level of operation. To the extent that they are sending any money back to Jamaica, is the same category of Jamaican migrants who go abroad and work decently and earn their living, and through their own prosperity send money back to Jamaica to their families.
When you talk to prosecutors, law enforcement people, judges in the United States, it's very clear that a large influx of weapons are coming into Jamaica. Hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars coming into Jamaica from the drug trade in Kansas City, New York, Miami. Where's that money going, and where are those guns going?
Well, the one thing that I can tell you about the money is it's not going to the political party system. Now, I speak for my party, and I know that.
Among the contributions the parties get are contributions from drug sources.
Arnold Bertram was a Minister of Information in the last opposition PNP administration. He's now retired from politics and writes political commentary.
Because violence is so intertwined with politics in this country, when you come to the next election, is it the party that has the most muscle, the party that has the most guns?
It's a decisive factor. The party that comes to the elections with the most money and the most, and consequently, because it's impossible to buy muscle without plenty of money, hold a decisive card. The other big source of money are drug barons. Drug barons who give money to political parties do so on the basis that they expect something in exchange. And most obviously it must be that the government of the day will turn the blind eye to the operations which make the contributions possible.
We have made it absolutely clear. I speak constantly about it. There are constant instructions about it in the PNP, that we do not wish to be penetrated or associated with gunmen, that we do not wish, and that we intend to fight this thing.
Michael Manley, in his bid for prime minister, is now leading in the polls.
If I'm in Waterhouse and I'm a guy who's got $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, I've got guns, and you're a politician in that neighborhood, how can you not do business with me if you want to influence that neighborhood?
I tell you this, I'm a politician, and no power. There is no power known to mankind that will make me deal with a man of that kind. I just won't do it.
If I'm a politician in that neighborhood, do I not have to know the people who have influence in that neighborhood? And if I am a drug baron and
The politician is concerned with people of influence in various areas and categories. The church has influence. The teachers have influence. The security forces have influence. Local community leaders have influence. True. To the extent that there are persons who have drug connections that have influence, they are there, but they are one of many.
That's as close to an admission as one can get from Seaga that the party has no choice but to deal politically with drug barons. He denies that his party takes drug money, but accuses his opponent's party, the PNP.
There's been one notable instance in which one of the leading drug barons actually made a donation on the floor of the conference of the PNP, which was accepted.
And who is that man?
No, I wouldn't like to call names of individuals. If you want to research it, you'll find the name.
I know who the man is, but you're saying this man is a drug dealer.
Oh, he's known, very well known.
How do you know that?
We know that. All intelligence knows that.
No question?
No question, absolutely no question. Not a drug dealer, a baron.
There's no question in your mind that Kenneth Black is a drug dealer, a drug baron?
Well, you said it, I didn't.
But you're saying to me that that person is a documented drug baron?
No question about that.
This is Kenneth Black. He's made a farce of the Reagan administration's war on drugs. Not only does the Jamaican Prime Minister call him a drug baron, but the Drug Enforcement Administration has had him under investigation for months. Posse members tell us that he's a major supplier of several U.S. cities. Yet he's never been convicted or even arrested. He travels freely between the U.S. and Jamaica. Officials say he spent millions on businesses and property in both countries. And he's made no secret of his interest in the upcoming election.
You had a major contributor whom you honored, $100,000 contribution to the party. At least it was said it was $100,000. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember. It was very open. He brought it up in a great big box.
And his name?
Not honored. I wouldn't remember his name. I just remember seeing a guy arrive with a box of money and dump it down.
Kenneth Black.
Is that it? But I wouldn't even.
You don't remember?
No, I don't know if I ever particularly knew his name. I may have known it, but I don't remember the name.
But he in fact gave a substantial amount of money to the party.
No, I tell you, he came with a box that contained $100,000. He put it down and he turned to the platform and he said, "That is what I think of Seaga's government." And he walked in a bold braggadocio way off the thing. I turned to my colleagues and I remember saying, "Who is that?" Let me just straighten you out. Okay. No colleague of mine, no friend of mine, no associate of mine. Let's put that on the record.
Is there any doubt in your mind that both the JLP, Seaga's party, and PNP, Manley's party, that both operate with drug money? No question.
There's no doubt at all to my mind that both parties get contributions from that source.
Arnold Bertram, like many Jamaican political analysts, believes that drug barons with their guns and money have become so entwined with the neighborhood politicians of both parties that they now desperately need one another to survive.
Once drug barons have got themselves in a position where they can become brokers, the politicians either have to try to wipe them out or make a deal with them.
And
I don't think there are any alternatives.
And here?
And there's no evidence that they are succeeding in wiping them out.
My squad will take the lead. Inman and Foster will initially run up the stairs to the door. We're interested in apartment number 4 first. That's the active apartment tonight.
Back in Kansas City, members of the Special Task Force are still fighting the battle, fighting the Jamaicans to a standstill. But there is no doubt that they are losing the war, because it's clear that they are fighting miles from the real front.
Drug trafficking is an international activity. It's an activity that takes place between countries. In this case, we're talking about Jamaica and the United States. If Jamaica has the means of putting an end to drug trafficking, the United States has that means even 100-fold more. from the fact that drug trafficking continues to take place at an even increased pace, I understand, means that there's an absence of political will in both countries to put a stop to it.
Coming up next on West 57, the art of making millions.
It's your boy Bullis Gotti. So, as you can see in the videos that we were discussing about Jamaica politics, what a lot of people don't understand is in Jamaica, you know, the bullet wins the ballots. The bullet is what controls the polls. And a lot of times when people talk about just the politics in general in Jamaica, it's all about who's the biggest gunman. So whoever wins the gun battle, the gunman that wins the gun battle, that's the side that wins the election. So if you JLP or PNP, that side wins the gun battle, they are in power. And when it came to in the 70 and 76, which was the bloodiest year, I think 80, 76 and 80 was the most bloodiest year in Jamaica. The bodies just dropped like crazy in 80 and 76. So you look at it like this. JLP lost, right? PNP took over. JLP gets back in power in 80, right? The whole Jamaican posse. But a lot of people don't understand, Bob Marley, he got shot during that whole debacle with the JLP and the PNP getting himself shot. But a lot of people don't look at it when it comes to Bob Marley, right? And I always compare like him and Pac, what they was doing. Pac was doing the Thug Manifesto, right? And if you look at what Pac was doing with the Thug Manifesto, Bob Marley was doing the same thing in Jamaica in the 70s with Claudie Massive, Bucky Marshall, Tech Life, Tony Welsh, and all those brothers, where they all came together. Yeah, they all came together to unify Jamaica, to stop the violence. But the powers that be didn't want that. And because the powers that be didn't want that, they didn't want to stop that. And what led to what happened then led to Bucky Marshall getting killed in Brooklyn at Starlight Lounge. It was Starlight Ballroom in 80. You know what I'm saying? Claudie Massive getting murdered, shot 40 times by the Jamaican police. What a lot of people don't understand, the politics, the Dons run Jamaica. The Dons is the men that have to say so in Jamaica. You know what I'm saying? When Edward Seaga was coming in with Jim Brown, who was like his security, they was coming here getting the firearms and all that. So in Jamaica, if you really look at where Jamaica was like, this is the height of the Cold War. This is the height of Iran-Contra. This is what really was going on. The corruption was just inevitable. So when a lot of these brothers came from Jamaica, you know what I'm saying? And they came from Jamaica in the 80s and they came here to the States. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of them was coming, some of them was coming in the 70s, but the majority, the bulk of the posse, the guys that was a part of the posses, the part of those crews, the Phoenix Gang, which was what later became the Shower Posse, they was coming here to the States and they was taking over the streets. You know what I'm saying? With the drug trade, going in Harlem, going in the Bronx, going into Brooklyn, going to Queens. You know what I'm saying? And the violence stepped all the way up. You got to remember, when these guys was coming here, you know, the guns, dudes' guns it was 38s. You know, 38s and 44 Bulldogs. These dudes was coming here, they was all about Tech 9s, Mac 11s, Uzis, and AK-47s and Glocks. You know what I'm saying? The police had to switch their guns because these dudes was coming here with automatic pistols, automatic weapons, semi-automatics. You know what I'm saying? They running around, you know, with 38 starter pistols and a 44 Bulldog and a 44 Magnum. You know what I'm saying? Going up against dudes that's coming in here with just a 16 shot. Like, niggas is letting it off with a banana clip. You know what I'm saying? So the gun game, it was crazy. And then when you look at how they was going in Texas, Philadelphia, you know, the biggest story what a lot of people don't know in Philadelphia, JBM and the Jamaican the Shout Posse was beefing. You know what I'm saying? When JBM had their issues with Craig Haynes, you know, after that, they went to war with the Shout Posse. You know, in New Jersey, they had the Shout Posse wars out there. In Boston, especially in OP, they had their issues with the Shout Posse out there. In Philadelphia, you know, like I said, Baltimore, they was out there. DC, they ran them up out of DC, and that's how they ended up in Baltimore. But they was in VA, they was in Texas, they was in especially Fort Worth, Dallas, Texas, you know, Houston, they was out there heavy, you know, Miami, you know what I'm saying? And then you gotta remember, they was in Ohio, Cleveland, Cincinnati, you know what I'm saying? So the Jamaican posse, and even in Connecticut, they was in CT. The Jamaican posses was just so ruthless, and they was open up shop and they was taking over. You know, when you watch the movie Marked for Death, that's how a lot of these dudes was coming, and it was all structured and all sponsored by the Jamaican government. You know what I'm saying? It was sponsored by, now I wouldn't say the Jamaican government so much, but it was sponsored by the CIA, like they said, because they sponsored these groups, just like how they was sponsoring the war on drugs. It was the same thing when it came to the Jamaican posses, because it was so much, the death toll was so crazy. Because if you look at it, when the Jamaicans came in the game, you know, it was a certain amount of groups. But when the cats from the third world countries, like the Spanish cats, the Spanish cats was ruthless, but the Jamaican cats took it to a whole nother level. And they was so ruthless with it, they just took it to a whole nother level. Just like what you see in Marked for Death, that's how it was. It was a whole nother level, a whole nother different type of brutality. We talking about the rankers, the gully men, you know, we talking about Shower Posse. We talking about these dudes was taking over buildings and whole blocks and controlling it with the weed and the coke. The weed and the coke. They had the weed lock and they had the coke on lock. You know what I'm saying? And they come in here and they dominate. You know what I'm saying? And it was such a dangerous time. And the way when people really look at it, these was dudes that was sponsored. The PNP was sponsored by the brothers that was a part of the gully men and the rankers was a part of the PNP side. The Shower Posse was a part of the JLP side. So these is people that they got the immunity of the government, and they coming here and being muscle for the government. They sponsoring the politicians back home in Jamaica. You know what I'm saying? And they sponsoring it with the drugs and the guns. So when people look at why these countries is the way it is, it's because look at what was sponsored. Look what happened. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is that America knew what they was doing. You know what I'm saying? And what happened to Bob Marley, he was a casualty of that war, because when he got shot in 76, you know what I'm saying? Just like how Tupac got shot in 94. He was trying to bring peace and unity and love. And when you get shot, you want to fall back. Because now you're doing too much that the powers that be is like, nah, we can't let this dude, we can't let this dude go out. Babylon not going to let you succeed in what you want to succeed in. So they had to shoot him in his house the way they did. And when they ended up shooting him in his house, look what happened to him. After that, the suspicion and the paranoia, he wasn't how he was free like he was before. Like, he started being more paranoid, because the paranoia switch, when you go from I'm open to everybody to now I gotta be on point, because everybody, how they say it, everybody ain't your every skin folk ain't your kinfolk. And that's what it is, and that's how people look at it. Yeah, I already ordered it. That's how people look at it, because everybody skin folk ain't your kinfolk. So when you really look at it, how like with Pac, the same thing when he made the Thug Life Manifesto, and he had dudes like Preem involved, and a lot of other East Coast generals, Chaz, and a lot of brothers in the East Coast was involved in this, right? Street dudes. You know what I'm saying? And when he got shot in Quad, it made him stop trying to do those type of do for his community. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a lot of people don't understand that, you know, when you do one accord and right accord, it's crazy. But like I said, man, we dealing with a time period where these groups ran rapid. They ran rapid. You know what I'm saying? We talking about the dudes, the ruthlessness was on a whole nother level. And then when you watch the new movie, the One Love movie, it showed you like what really happened. You know what I'm saying? And these dudes was really, you know, the Bucky Marshalls and the Claudie Massives. These was brothers that was, you know, that was positive brothers that was trying to get out of that life. And they couldn't let them accomplish that mission. You know, they couldn't let them accomplish that mission. That mission couldn't be accomplished. So they had to stop it by any means necessary, whether it took them. Now, if you look at a dude like a Tony Welsh, right? He was the only one that the last living one out of that situation that was there when they came up with the whole unity thing. He was the last living dude. But everybody else, they got killed off. You know what I'm saying? They got killed off. And they did it for a reason, you know? And it was ruthlessness on a whole impactful level, you know, because what they was doing, it didn't see what people gotta understand. The intensity what these dudes was doing was they didn't have no care in the world. A lot of them Jamaican posse dudes. They didn't care about authority. They didn't care. They had to step the laws up because, oh, these dudes ain't caring. These dudes ain't caring. They killing police. They doing a whole lot of shit. They coming out here with Uzis and Mac 11s and Mac 10s and 9mm semi-automatic pistols. You know what I'm saying? We outgunned by these dudes. So the intensity of what they was coming with was like, damn, these niggas is not they different. You know what I'm saying? They different and they ruthless. So it was like, you know, it was all out war, you know, around that time. And like I said, if you look at that 80s, that era, man, it was brothers was going to war with them, man. Brothers was going to war. Some dudes was able to hold it down and back them niggas down. And some niggas, you know, they fell, they fell and they lost it. You know what I'm saying? And the way they was coming, like I said, they was coming, sending they niggas, they was bringing niggas up from Jamaica. Yeah, you got one nigga here, and they bringing another nigga up to be the shooter. You know what I'm saying? Them niggas was different. You know what I'm saying? They'll come, like they need reinforcements, they bringing another nigga up from Jamaica, and they lay their ring. You know what I'm saying? These niggas fresh off the plane, they ready to put in the work and all that. Next thing you know, this nigga, he running shit now. You know, so it was a different type of warfare, a different type of game that they was coming with, you know what I'm saying? And it was because, you gotta remember, they was trained a different type of way, my nigga. These niggas is political fighters, bro. They really was riding for the side of politics. They was out here really putting in the work for a vote. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at the election, you go in there pulling a lever. They go on election time there, they going to get their gun. They going to get their gun when it's election time. You know what I'm saying? And the best man who win the gun battle is the best man that's going to win the whole election. Because the man that don't win that gun battle, he ain't winning that election. So that's the way they was coming. know what I'm saying? That's the way a lot of people got to understand. It's a different type of energy that those dudes was bringing, man. Them Jamaican cats they was ruthless, man. They was ruthless, man. It was not to be trifled with, man. Not to be trifled with. And that's why when you really look at it, how the posses was, man, it was different ball game, man. Different ball game, man. But it's your boy Bullets Gotti, man. I just wanted to touch on that real quick. You know what I'm saying? And let everybody know that, man. You know, the streets it was crazy back then. You know what I'm saying? And it was highly political.